It's a doll movie.
Is there not something more important going on in the world to get super passionate about?
Most certainly is a feminist film.
Or to have like the time and energy to get worked up over a doll movie. Like,
it appears that the hosts in the intellectual powerhouse we know as The View are upset at anyone who criticizes Barbie, because as we all know, it's such an important and brave movie, so of course you're not allowed to criticize its plot, story or characters. Makes so much sense. How dare people criticize Margot and Greta's amazing vision for the movie?
We knew that, like, was also at the core of it was not just like vis-a-vis the brand but just the story and the characters was that, like, I knew and Margot knew and all the actors knew that what we wanted at the center of it was just a really big heart, and that part of it was so, but that in that way it's giving him humanity, as it were, as a doll, as whatever these kind of knots on knots that we have.
Rarely have I seen so many logical inconsistencies in such a short excerpt as the one we're about to see. I'm amazed how they managed to pull it off, so credit where credit is due. We've got a lot of work to do, but the good thing about this work is that it's unintentionally entertaining. Let's go for it.
Wow, it's a movie. It's a movie about a doll. It's a doll movie. And you know who
Really? Well, that's new, because in their interview with Greta, it sure didn't sound like it was just a movie about a doll. In fact, they all made the movie sound unreliably profound.
And many people agree with that and think that Barbie created unrealistic beauty standards.
Sure.
We know that. It seemed that that body image was unattainable.
It's a doll movie.
But you thought that that part of Barbie and her legacy was important to include in the movie. Tell us why.
Yeah, well, it was really, Barbie is complex as an icon, and just as you guys were all talking before,
This was kind of blowing me away, because it is quite subversive, I think, in many ways, the film.
Ryan would high-five him and say, like, right on, man, you look great in neon. And Margot, they'd just look at her. And they look her up and down and then move on. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's happening.
yeah, that's real life. This is just like such a cool project because I love everything you do has so many layers and there's like a depth to it.
It's a doll movie.
This makes the opinions that Whoopi is kind enough to share with us oversimplifying. Her conclusions distract from the criticism, because the argument isn't about whether or not it's a movie about a doll. Everyone knows it is. It's the arguments against the movie she needs to deal with, and she doesn't.
The kids know it's colorful and it's Barbie. They haven't lived through what the adults have lived through. So when they're seeing this movie, that's not how they're looking at it. The kids are looking at it as a Barbie movie.
Before tackling Whoopi's never-ending, strong and to-the-point arguments, I feel it's appropriate to point out that someone on the panel wasn't laughing on cue. Did you notice it?
The adults have lived through. So when they're seeing this movie, that's not...
But then again, the laughter is misplaced in this serious context, with Whoopi giving us all something to think about, which tells us a lot about the sincerity of this laughter. That's not how they're looking at it, she claims. I'm curious to know if Whoopi knows that shouting your arguments doesn't make them any stronger. You have to provide grounds for your claims. That makes your argument stronger. So my questions are, has she done a survey asking how they look at it? Or does she think this is an argument that can be consistently applied when it comes to which movies should be allowed for them to see? That because they haven't lived through what we have lived through, it's okay to see the given movie? In that case, who needs censorship? I mean, technically, a movie like Seven is just about the lives of two police officers. Has Whoopi thought this through? Furthermore, this criticism is shallow because they're reacting to merely a few seconds from much longer videos. If this is one of their strongest points, it should tell us a thing or two about the rest of their points.
You guys, I want you all to tell your daughters why you're not taking them to see the Barbie movie. I want you to explain to them what's wrong with Barbie.
I must say that the strongest case for this movie being good and decent family entertainment completely devoid of ideology is the loving attitude of its supporters, like Whoopi. Obviously, all of this comes from a good place, and it's not like she's getting upset over this just a doll movie. It's not like her, shall we say, slightly intimidating way of saying this unintentionally reveals that she, like everybody on the planet we call Earth, knows that it's about a lot more than that.
Now, look, I love my Barbie. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
It's a doll movie, guys. I'm shocked that that's what's freaking you out these days.
In case we didn't get Whoopi's only but rather complex argument the first and second time, here it is again, delivered in the most age-appropriate way possible. The opinions keep getting more and more nuanced and difficult to challenge.
Good for them.
I also just aspire to have like the time and energy to get worked up over a doll movie. Like, this is just like such a cool project because I love everything you do has so many layers and there's like a depth to it.
It's ironic that they keep emphasizing that it's just a doll movie because they're actually denigrating the movie. I'm sure that making just a doll movie was exactly what Margot and Greta wanted to do because, as we all know, producers and directors always want to make movies about nothing. No themes, no messages, nothing. It's also untrue because Greta herself said it was about something. Granted, it wasn't easy for her, but in the midst of all the hesitation in trying to hide the movie's real agenda, she managed to put a few predicates on it, albeit unsubstantiated, but if we aren't used to that by now, we never will be.
Most certainly is a feminist film, and I think that the sort of...
Can you explain that? Why? How so?
To me, it's like that's like one slice of the pie. Like it's so...
It's pretty big.
It's a big slice, but like...
To whatever that sort of like, it's also a humanist film because it's like the...
So my questions are, how can the movie be about two different things at the same time? How can it be just a doll movie and also be about the isms that Greta mentions? Unless they're actually implying that the isms mean nothing, considering how they ignore them in this captivating discussion. That would be new and interesting.
It reminds me of the Bud Light, scandal or whatever. Is there not something more important going on in the world to get super passionate about?
First of all, this is a false equivalence. She's ignoring the fact that the Bud Light controversy and Barbie have two completely different contexts.
What does evolve and elevate mean? It means inclusivity. It means shifting the tone.
Secondly, she turns the attention away from what the discussion is about to something else, which she doesn't even define. However, by turning the attention to something else, she fails to properly deal with the topic at hand. Just because there's something else to get super passionate about, as she states, using language that's super appropriate for a host, it's not an argument against why some people get passionate about criticizing the movie. This is what aboutism on full display.
But it is, to Joy's point, it kind of shows how the right-wing influencers are actually out of touch with actual Republicans. Yeah. Every girlfriend of mine, Republican and Democrat, lined up this weekend to see it. There were memes, people were dressing up to go see it.
This is another logical fallacy, failing to deal with criticism. In Latin, it's called argumentum ad populum. In English, we know it as the bandwagon fallacy. When the speaker wants you to like or believe something because everybody else does, so that if you don't, you're out of touch and old-fashioned. In political rhetoric, it's called split hunting, trying to assert that the critics are at odds with their own group, which still fails to deal with the criticism. However, it exposes how Alyssa thinks. She thinks in terms of groups rather than looking at people as individuals with their own distinct opinions, that if you're part of a certain group, you should think this or that about it. How strong and independent is that? I don't care if they were dressing up as Santa Claus. It still has nothing to do with the argument. So, you wanna go see the movie? I don't really know, bro. Come on, bro. Everyone I know likes it. I mean, I don't think it looks very good. I mean, looking at the trailer, the dialogue seems cliched and the emotional outbursts look forced. I'm not trying to... No, it's okay. You're allowed to have your opinion. I'm a tolerant person. So, it sure was cold yesterday, right? I mean, okay, how can you say something like that? Really? Who do you think you are? Everyone I know lined up this weekend to see it. There were memes and people were dressing up. I don't think it looks very good. Look, bro, I don't know what to tell you. Don't call me bro. This friendship's over, and I've got some dressing up to do. Goodbye, pal. We were never that close anyway.
It's fun. Greta Gerwig's brilliant.
I love the amount of effort she puts into her work. Clearly a lot of preparation went into this heartfelt review of the movie and nuanced assessment of its director.
But also, I'm so taken by some of these right-wing men who have all these thoughts on masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
Like somehow the Barbie movie is going to make them feel emasculated. No, caring so much about it is honestly the most emasculating thing I could think about.
If there's anything positive about being from a different country, it's that I can't be labeled in terms of wings in another country. So even though Alyssa engages in another logical fallacy, that you can't say X because you are Y, I'm able to keep this thing going. She continues with the argumentation via complex question fallacy, presupposing that the critics feel emasculated, which you can't know. However, it's very convenient for her to make this deceptive presupposition because it helps her evade the responsibility she has to actually deal with the criticism. Well, in fantasy land, that is. Or the view land, if you will. Potato, potato. Also, the implication in her point about caring about it is fallacious, as it can be applied logically to other situations, because since when is caring much about something emasculating? So every time someone cares much about something, it's emasculating? Or is it only when Alyssa doesn't want to deal with the arguments? I really don't know the answer to that one. Do you? It's also a little strange she makes this about men when they started this inspiring discussion with a clip of someone who obviously wasn't a man.
I quickly learned this isn't a kid's movie after all.
She appeals to honesty, which, coupled with the observations we've made, makes what she says seem about as reliable as her laughter.
Caring so much about it is honestly the most emasculating thing I could think about.
You're right, it was inhumane, it was unequal, it was like, that was the point, it's satire and it's hyperbole.
This is the first somewhat qualified thing I've heard from this panel. Even if it might be a wrong interpretation, I won't be the judge of that. It's still somewhat related to the criticism. 3 problems though. Where are the grounds for these claims? Because it's not like Greta was able to articulate them.
Right, which is, you know, but that in that way, it's giving him.
And 2, you don't negate a position by a 10-second counterinterpretation, maybe in the view land, but not in reality. And 3, why is it that the movie is suddenly about so many things when they spent the first 2 minutes agreeing it was just a doll movie? Did they even know they were on camera? She doesn't have time for more because after all, this is about virtue signaling, not truth.
Like, the whole point was to make you pause and say, wow, this is like the opposite of what we live in. Right. And Greta Gerwig, by the way, this was the largest opening ever for a female director, and it wasn't a superhero movie. It was really about being a girl. Yeah. So, you know, there's some history-making things here. But I also love the performances, like Margot Robbie, Issa Rae, Kate McKinnon. Like,
it's interesting how quick she is to move from the history-making things, which sounds so specific and well thought out, to talking about the performances. Thus, she avoids having to detail how obviously monumental this movie is, because as we all know, there aren't any other movies about being a girl. So what we're all witnessing is history in the making. I'm a little disappointed here. What I thought was a preface to dealing with the criticism was actually a preface to nothing. Oh well, maybe in another The View discussion. I'll be waiting passionately. See you next time, and don't forget to like the video and subscribe in the meantime.